Hey, my name is Steve Palazzolo, and I'm a labor and employment attorney at Warner, Norcross, and Judd. Like many of you, I'm working from home, but unlike many of you, I actually took it upon myself to build myself an office in my backyard. Yes, I am sitting in an 8 by 12 foot shack that I built with my own two hands because I got sick and tired of sitting in the basement all summer and I wanted a view. My wife, through the laughter of watching me try to put this thing together, decided that we needed to name my office. And being a fan of WLAV's Friday song, she decided that the appropriate name for my new office, my luxurious new office, would be Palazzolo's Law Shanty. So here I am in Palazzolo's Law Shanty bringing you episode 1 of News from the Law Shanty. Episode 1 of News of the Law Shanty is talking about the concept of remote work. It's an issue that's obviously important to all of us. A lot of us are working from home. A lot of us have people working from home. And we want to talk about when and if we can bring those people back to the office and how we should do it and what we need to do. And we've gotten some recent guidance from MIOSHA on their view of remote work. So let me give you just a smidge of a background, and then we'll jump right into MIOSHA's executive rule and executive order, if you will, and we'll talk about remote work, okay? So you all know March, COVID hits, governor starts issuing executive orders. Many of those executive orders deal with reopening the state, her safe start plan, if you will, reopening the state. And she started to include in some of those orders language about remote work. And that language variously was any work that can be done remotely must be done remotely, or any work that can be done remotely should be done remotely, and that depended on which region of the state you were in. As you all know, on October 2nd, the Michigan Supreme Court invalidated the governor's orders by holding that she didn't have the power under either the Emergency Powers of the Governors Act or the Emergency Management Act, the statute she was using to justify what she was doing, to issue those orders. So the orders are now invalidated. MDHHS, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, steps in and issues an epidemic order prohibiting certain gatherings in the state. They do that under a different statute that was passed way back in 1919 in response to the Spanish flu epidemic. They expand that to include some workplace gatherings. And then on the 14th of October, MIOSHA, the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration, issues its emergency rule concerning COVID-19, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, the emergency rule is comprehensive, and it covers many of the things that the governor was covering in her executive orders. It's got a requirement you have a preparedness and response plan. It's got a requirement that you do screening. It's got a requirement that you keep records. It's got specific requirements for specific industries, and it's got a rule regarding remote work. As I told you, the executive orders had a must or a should rule in them. This rule is different, and it's way more burdensome. Burdensome is not the right word. Puts much more of the impetus on you as the employer to make sure that you have a rule, now a policy in place, and that you're following that policy. We don't just have must or should work from home language anymore. Here's what Rule 5(8) says. I'm going to read it to you. Executive Rule 5(8) says, quote, "The employer shall create a policy prohibiting in-person work for employees to the extent that their work activities can feasibly be completed remotely." End quote. Again, that puts a much bigger burden on an employer. You now have to have a policy. There's not if you've got people that can work home, they should work from home. You've got to have a policy that requires people to work from home, prohibits them from coming to the office if their work can feasibly be performed from home. Well, what does that mean? We didn't really have any guidance on that issue for a while. And then on the 6th of November, we got some guidance from MDHHS. But don't forget, this is a MIOSHA rule, not an MDHHS rule. But they issued some guidance called Keep Workplaces Safe. And there was a paragraph in there that dealt with the issue of remote work. And in that paragraph, they gave examples of some people that can come to work, like somebody who works on an assembly line or a food service worker, and some language about when people should work remotely. And they said one of the things that they said in that guidance, DHHS said in that guidance, was inefficiency is not good enough. Just because somebody's more efficient in the office doesn't mean their work can't be performed remotely. That's interesting. Now, that's MDHHS guidance in a guidance document. Does that mean we can ignore it? No, it doesn't mean that. But again, we hadn't gotten any guidance from MIOSHA on what they thought their rule meant. We got that last week, and I'm going to talk to you about it real quickly and what that means for you. The guidance isn't actually formal guidance. It's an answer to an FAQ on their website, and here it says the following, quote, the question is, quote, Executive Rule 5(8) says the employer shall create a policy prohibiting in-person work for employees to the extent that their work activities can feasibly be completed remotely. What type of policy is required? End quote. That's the question. Now, here's the answer that MIOSHA gave that puts some burdens on you for things that you need to do. First thing they said was this, quote, MIOSHA will accept a written policy which indicates that employees are not to perform in-person work activities where the work activity can feasibly be completed remotely, end quote. Wow. Are you kidding me? Basically, what they just told you there was they'll accept a policy that says what the rule says. It's not very helpful, is it? But they didn't stop there. They gave us more. Here's where we get to where the rubber hits the road, or we get to the meat of it, right? Next thing MIOSHA says is this. Employers are obligated to demonstrate infeasibility of remote work. What does that mean? That means that the burden is squarely on you as the employer to be able to show that if you're going to make somebody come to the office, they have to come to the office. They can't do their job away from the office. For our assembly line worker, that's pretty easy. I make auto parts. Can I make auto parts in my garage? No, I can't make auto parts in my garage. Why? Where do we make auto parts? On an assembly line. Where's the assembly line? In my plant. In order to make auto parts, I got to come to the plant. That's simple. It's a simple explanation. It's a much more difficult explanation for your accountant who sits in front of a computer every day, though, isn't it? Now, does that mean your accountant can't come to the office? It doesn't mean that at all. But it means that you've got the burden to show why that accountant has to come to the office and why they can't do their work at home. And there's more guidance from MIOSHA on how you go about doing that. So what they say is this, your policy, your remote work determination has to include information which covers at least two things. Number one, which positions or classifications have to report for in-person work and why they have to be physically present in the workplace. We're going to do a nice little Excel spreadsheet. Now, in one column, we're going to have the names of all the positions of people that have to come to work. And then we're going to have a column that says why they have to do it, why they can't work from home. And then the next thing OSHA says is this, the reasons that this work cannot be performed remotely, which must include enough specificity to show that an analysis has been performed. That's a paraphrase, not a quote. What that means is, to me, is this, you've got to sit down. For every person that you want to come report to your office, your shop, your whatever, every job title, you've got to sit down. You've got to look at that job. You've got to look at the job duties. And then you have to be able to explain to somebody why, and that somebody is going to be a MIOSHA investigator, why that employee has to come to work to do their job and why they can't do it at home. As I've already said, for some jobs, that's not going to be that hard. For other jobs, it's going to be a little more difficult. But that's the analysis that MIOSHA wants you to do, and they want you to have it in paper. Now, where do you do this? Does this policy have to be standalone, or it can be part of something else? Here's what MIOSHA says. This written policy may be part of the employee's COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. It does not have to be a standalone document. So you can plug it into your response plan if you want, and that's great. No problem doing that. Or you can have a standalone document that lives just for this crisis and then goes away, which is also something you might want to think about doing. It's entirely up to you. But as long as you follow these MIOSHA rules, you can either do it either way, as long as you have a written policy and as long as you've done the analysis. Now, how you go about doing this? Well, it's funny you should ask that because we can help. Number one, if you don't have a preparedness and response plan, you need to call us right away and get one in place. And we can help you with that. We've got a product that we can get to you that'll help you do that. Number two, if you don't have a remote work plan, that complies with these OSHA requirements, MIOSHA requirements, we can help you with that too. We also have a template plan that we can get to you. We've got a little tool that comes with it that helps you do the analysis, and we'll help walk you through that process. If you need those things, call your Warner Norcross and Judd lawyer. It doesn't have to be your Warner Norcross and Judd labor lawyer, but it certainly can be if you have another contact, and they can help get these things to you. If you don't have a Warner Norcross and Judd lawyer, go to our website, WNJ.com. You can go under professionals, you can go under practice groups, go to the labor practice group, click on the link. You're going to see a lot of pictures of really nice people. Pick one of us and give us a call, and we'll be happy to help you get your plan in place. Thanks very much for joining us in the first episode of News for the Law, Shanny, and we'll see you next time.